With the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So the first item on the agenda is U.S. Rental. Dan Bickford is requesting revisions. Oh, sorry. Thanks, Tom. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from May 28th Planning Board meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay.
I'm sorry, Matt. No, I'm not opposed.
Okay, number 2, disclosure of conflict of interest. Does anybody have a conflict they wish to disclose on any of the votes that we're going to take tonight? Okay, hearing none. Now, Boyd. U.S. Rental Dan Bickford's requesting revisions for industrial park subdivision for construction of addition to existing building.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open it up on the screen here for you. There. Okay, so this is, we were in front of you folks last month. This triangle piece, the lower right-hand corner of that, Mr. Bickford wants to do a 24 by 80 addition on the existing, it used to be the old Meineke building. And in order to do that and meet the setback requirements, he had to adjust some property lines, and it's within the original industrial park subdivision. So we're coming to you with an amendment to the subdivision with the lot lines that were required. So basically, it's hard to see on this screen, but this dotted line right here was the existing property line. So as you can see with that addition, it would have put him right just over the property line itself. We set that property line back, actually slid this property line over. Dan, through different corporations, owns all 3 of these lots. So this met the setback requirements with these changes, and this building still meets the required setbacks when we're done. So we have been through the council rezone. Now the triangular piece, or adjusted triangular piece, is all commercial C. It was industrial and commercial. Now it's all commercial C. So we're here to look for comments and hopefully approval from the planning board. So
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Did we got a correspondence from Oakhurst? Do they, which parcel are they involved with? Is 16 that big one just to the
it's
northwest?
actually up here.
Oh,
right
yeah,
here.
okay.
So, and they're actually about 10 feet higher in grade. You just wanted to know if there was any sort of water issues
Right.
related to this. So we're
Okay.
10 feet below. So I emailed them today and said, you're okay. That was the only comments, I think, other than, I think we did get one comment just in support.
Letter of support.
Yep.
Okay, any questions from the public? Do you have a question? You just flipped on, so I didn't know. Okay. Great. Anything else that you need from us, Ann, for this? Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Do we want to sign the plan now, or so I can bring it to the registry, or?
Oh,
Make a motion to approve.
They should vote.
Second.
okay, all those in favor?
I'm sorry, did we have a motion on this?
Motion, second.
David?
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Did you want to sign
do you want
these
us to
now?
sign them right now? Yeah.
Thank you.
Black ink, Ann?
Thank you. Have a good night.
Very, very nice. It's important. I'm a chap's.
Okay, next up is GR Waterville Operating LLC is requesting informal pre-application review for construction of a car wash at 460 Kennedy Memorial Drive.
Hello.
Hi.
Your arms are gonna get tired. Can you spin them? You know? He can do all the tricks.
You would think this would be easier to operate.
My card?
Good evening. My name is Crystal Robbins. I'm the construction manager for Waterville Car Wash. I'm here with Randy Boggs. He's the civil designer for Carpenter Associates. So we're here to represent our project. Okay. Washville is an express car wash business that started in 2019 and has since grown to 20-plus operating facilities across the Northeast. At Washville, we aim to provide a convenient, high-quality, and low-cost car wash for our customers. We achieve this by significantly investing into our sites and equipment to provide the best in-class experience for our customers. We offer monthly memberships so that our members can wash cars daily for less than $1. We take pride in the aesthetics of our buildings and the attempt to achieve the retail corridors of the communities we operate in. Lastly, we design our sites to allow for customers ease of use and to maintain proper traffic. I don't know if you want to show them.
So Randy Bragg from Carpenter Associates, helping out with some of the engineering. This project is located along Kennedy Memorial Drive in the parking lot of Martin's building, kind of adjacent to the Taco Bell that's there currently.
I have to have you speak into the microphone so that he can get it.
Oh.
And the virtual, sorry.
I apologize. Randy Bragg from Carpenter Associates. This project, this tunnel-style car wash project is proposed along Kennedy Memorial Drive in the parking lot closest to the road at Martin's. It will be a lease, a land lease. All of the utilities are on our side of the road except for the water line, and we'll propose to bore under the road for that connection. Gas, sewer, storm, electric are all on, luckily, our side of the road, so it should be an easy connection for everything too. Very little disturbance to KMD. So it's pretty straightforward. The entire project's going on impervious area, and it'll be collected into the storm drain system that's there currently. I guess the other thing you might have concerns about are the queuing. This project has a triple lane that can stack about 30 cars within this space and has all of this space for additional queuing if needed, which is far excessive. They're hoping they have that many car washes. So we're here to answer any questions you may have.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
How many potential customers do you see in a given day, and will all the customers be accessing the site via the existing intersection with the traffic light?
There's actually 2 proposed ways, at least currently, unless we find out differently, that you can get into the lot right in only here, and we can certainly get in here, in and out from Washington Street.
Do you want to put it up here so they can?
I can.
So the first ingress that you described to me, that's off of Kennedy Memorial Drive, will that be an ingress only or an?
It'll be right in only.
in- okay.
As it is, I believe it is now.
Okay.
So no changes to the traffic patterns out here.
Okay.
We'll use the ones that are already set up for us.
And do you have a figure on how many cars, how many people you estimate?
Crystal may have more exact numbers, but based on the similar stores that we did recently in Bangor and Brewer, there's probably no more than peak one vehicle about every 5 minutes that can go through the wash.
Okay. And the wastewater or all the effluents, is it all environmentally friendly, or is there any
Yes,
hazardous?
We'll make sure we take
Okay.
care of all the stormwater, make sure we treat it, collect it, slow it down before we discharge it again. They have a fairly sophisticated water filtration system
Yeah.
that will recycle a large percentage of the
Yeah,
water.
it's 70% of our water is recycled.
Oh, could you move the microphone there? I'm having trouble hearing.
70% of our water is recycled.
With soap or other detergents or is there any other treatment that needs to, or wax or anything like that?
It's completely cleaned
It's-
and reused, yep.
Okay. All right, anybody else?
Okay, any other questions? How many anticipated additional trips into that plaza are we looking at?
I think it could be 120.
An
I think that's
hour? A day?
no, that's a day. Sorry.
Oh, that's fair.
We expect the peak hourly trips to be less than 1 for traffic movement permit. The two that we have further north are 140-foot long tunnels. This is 110, and those just went over the limit for a traffic movement permit, so we expect this to be about 20% lower than that limit.
Is this brushless or a automatic brush? Like, what kind of
You
car
can
wash
ask
is
for
this?
both.
You can ask for both, but it is, I wouldn't call it brush because it's more of like a foam, so that it doesn't scratch up your vehicle.
But it like goes on the little thing and it drives your car through?
Yeah,
Yep.
and we have tendants at, when you pull in, over here you'll see, sorry, is it okay? Okay, over here you'll see that we have the gates right here, and we always have attendants here, and then when you pull in, we always have 1 to 2 people right here, depending on how busy our site is that day, helping people in so that there's just like very smooth process.
You mentioned the queue. There is one car wash already on KMD, and we have a backup on KMD consistently when it's season to wash your car. So you mentioned sort of in anticipation of what you thought it would be like and where people would be. If you wouldn't mind pointing that out again and talking a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so here's our queuing lane right here. This right here, the third lane, is a members only lane. So they automatically get to go through, so they're not backing up anything. And then on top of that, we also have a bailout lane, just in case anything ever occurs, so that we don't back up. And then, you know, we do monitor sites all the time and make sure that, you know, we don't want to be causing problems.
So 2 possibilities for entering the plaza. One is from KMD, it looks like near the entrance that's closest to the interstate, and then potentially, was it Washington Street? I see significant potential for backup that would back up towards the exits, the off-ramp from I-95, and then back up from all of those that are coming from Oakland. So I'm concerned about that.
Okay.
Like, I see they'd be entering, so I'm just sort of wondering, they enter and wrap around, is that what it is?
Yeah, they would traditionally come in here and then come into the lane
Okay.
in the stack. About 30 we can fit in the stack if we need to.
Yeah.
So you can stack up about 30 vehicles here, and then you have all this queuing, and then any overflow, they can go right into our free back systems. So while they're waiting, if there does ever happen to be an overly busy time.
Okay.
So that is something that we really do take pride in is our stacking and queuing lane, because
Is it possible for you to answer into the microphone?
Yeah, I
I'm sorry
know,
to be
it's
a
super
pain,
frustrating.
But like, if there are people watching online, they have to be able to hear you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What would you like me to repeat?
Whatever you were just talking to her about,
Okay.
because I don't even think that most of us could hear that.
Yeah.
So we do have 3 lanes, and they hold about 60 cars, you said?
About 30.
30, okay. 30 cars. One of them is a fast pass lane, which just automatically goes through. And it also has a bypass lane. So for any reason, if there's any emergency of any kind, or it's just, you can just scooch on through right through here into our free back station. And they can also use the vacuums prior to getting, they can also use the vacuums prior to getting their car washed. So
But if I'm looking where the vacuums are, it looks like the vacuums are closer to that entrance over where KMD is that right?
yes, this is the vacuum area right here. How many stalls do we have?
About 20 of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just think I don't want to speak for Hillary, but this is my concern anyways, is that little on-ramp coming off of KMD closest to the intersection, to the interstate. If there are cars backed up there that are prohibiting, people entering for Martins and all of the other reasons people enter this plaza,
Sure.
it's not a great part of KMD already. Like, there are a lot of accidents there. Sometimes
All
when
the
I
time,
feel,
yeah.
when
Yeah,
I
they really
feel
are.
like I have to get off the interstate there every day, when I feel like I'm about to take a right, like it's kind of a blind hill, and people fly down it, and like sometimes I feel like I'm taking my life into my hands, like entering off of that off ramp. So like, I don't know. I might consider looking at whether or not you would allow people to enter the queue from that side. Maybe they have to enter from Washington Street instead.
Have them, I just want you, just have them enter from this side.
Yes, if they start backing up on that, and I know you say you monitor it and all that, but this is something we deal with quite frequently right now on KMD already. And it might be once a month or something like that, but I'm telling you, it could become a problem. So I would just
Sure, I mean, there should be no problem with that.
look into that part.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
The intersection is already really dangerous. It is. And I appreciate, I love the idea of a bailout lane. I think that's really clever. I think it's great because I've been stuck before and then you can't get out. I think that's great. But I'm looking at where the vacuums are and they're close to that area. And I think a lot of people do want to vacuum before they get their car washed. So I think insisting that people enter from the other side makes a lot of sense.
Would it be an option to just curb off that part of the parking lot that would force anyone coming in right here to just,
Well,
do you guys have the option of doing that,
I'm not sure we have that option.
Yeah.
right? Because that would be the only way to stop it.
Right. Because people can still enter there
100%.
anyway, can't
They could say, oh,
Yeah.
you can't enter that way. People are still going to do it.
Yeah.
We can
So-
certainly put in signage to promote, the main entrance and exit, and there's always going to be those folks that cut across and shortcut things, but we can put a sign that say, don't go to the car wash from here, kind of thing. But,
Right.
there's always going to be people entering that road
Mm-hmm.
for existing business.
Right.
You said you can fit about 30 people in the queue. Can you just show me roughly where that would start and end?
About right here.
Yeah.
So that's
There's
30.
3 lanes of about 8 or 10 right there that we
Right.
can fit in there, or modify to make more if we need to.
Yeah, it seems like quite a few.
Yeah. And then we probably figure we have another 8 or 10 along here, and then probably another 8 or 10 along here, which
And then
Yeah.
you're saying you do not like.
I'm really concerned about queuing along that entrance off of KMD where it's a forced right. I do not think I do not think you should be able to queue there at all. So even if they're entering that way, I don't think queuing there is going to be a good idea.
Yeah, we're hoping all the queuing lanes.
I know, the hoping is wonderful, but I just think we need to be really sure because I think we could cause some serious accidents right there if you start queuing on that on-ramp. I don't know what experience you have with the traffic flow entering this parking lot, but it's pure chaos, in my opinion. So, like, you know, we have people going there, they're going to Martin's. It's not necessarily perfectly lined up so that it's like a road. So then people are trying to get to, you know, here, here, here. So if they start queuing, it's not that wide, like it's a 1-lane road. If they're queuing right there, you're gonna back up traffic onto KMD.
I think as David was pointing out, like there's no way to guarantee that, is there? I mean, we can encourage it. We can ask that it be encouraged, but we can't, it's not that we can close off that road. People are going to do it anyway, aren't they?
Well, right, the only way to do it would be to curb off where that entrance road comes in, where they would then be able to make a left-hand turn right there, that would have to be blocked off. Not the entire entrance road, but them being able to make a left-hand turn right there. That would force them to continue down the road all the way to Martin's.
But you want them to be able to make a left-hand turn because that's where the vacuums are, right?
Well, they need to drive all the way around.
Right.
Right.
But,
Well, you don't have to drive all the way around to the vacuums. There's a couple entrance points to the vacuums.
no, I understand, but if we don't allow them to take a left-hand turn here, then you would have to drive all the way around.
Right.
What I'm saying is being able to enter there from a left-hand turn or not, like we should not be able to queue on that on-ramp. Like that we need to make sure that whatever traffic flow is done possible, that doesn't happen, in my opinion. That's a major concern of mine.
Do we, anecdotally, among us, do we know what sort of traffic? I was unaware, I blow by there, I guess, and not notice that entrance. Is
just
it
drove
utilized?
right
Yeah, is it utilized by, what, KFC and Taco Bell
Yeah.
and Martin's folks?
Yes.
So we have the potential for a line of cars for the car wash, and then that being exacerbated by people getting caught coming in trying to go to the other businesses?
Yes. So it's like anybody coming
Yeah.
down from Oakland makes a right-hand turn. If they're trying to get into the Martin's complex there, they make a right-hand turn.
So we're
On
not
that.
just worried about visitorship to
Right.
the car wash?
Yeah, I'm worried about how that impacts flow to the entire plaza there.
I think what Sam and I are getting at, because we both commute and we take that exit almost every single day, is you can turn right on Red and cars come barreling down from Oakland. And so, and that's why there are accidents there all the time. So it really is a very dangerous intersection. So it just takes one car to be backed up onto the road because they're waiting in line, and somebody's coming from Oakland not realizing that there could be a car stopped in the middle of the road. Not quite unlike what happens in other places on KMD, but you have a little bit more of a visual before you get there. In Oakland, you're coming down that hill, you've got the overpass, you don't necessarily see it unless you get stopped at the light. When the light is green,
Yeah.
they're just plowing through it. And you know this because you get off the interstate and you go through, and then you have to floor it because somebody's coming behind you.
It's just something to think about. That's- Any other questions? Any questions from members of the public? Do you have a question?
My name is Tom Neal.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry,
have no interest in what they're doing, other than the fact that I think it's a great idea. I think another car wash in the city is certainly needed. But just so I can address something now so it doesn't pop up again, I agree with the traffic situation. You got a right on Washington Street, you got a right before that. But even before that, you've got that huge lot that Martin's owns. That's going to be developed. That's going to be another right turn. So I think that needs to be addressed also at some point in time, so it doesn't pop up and surprise these good folks at some point down the road. That's all.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. KV Cap is requesting revisions to a previously approved plan for 52 King Street.
Good evening, Jeff Allen from AE Hudson. And
Jeff,
this
you
is
might want to turn the microphone a little bit. There you go.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's okay.
So this is a plan that was previously approved by you a few months ago. This is not it, though. For a 37-unit apartment at 52 King Street. At that time, we had a larger parking lot, and some of the comments that we got back from you indicated you wanted to decrease the amount of parking. So what we've done is been able to do away with this row of parking here and some of these over here, and we're still left with, excuse me, a 1.5 spaces per unit. Before we had 2 spaces per unit. These units are 1 and 2 bedroom primarily, and a few 3-bedroom units. No change in the building plan itself, just a reconfigured parking lot to and we're also, did move the building forward toward King Street by 15 or 20 feet to pull it out of the hillside there. At one time, the previously approved plan, we would have to, grammar is a hard thing, would have had a 15 or 18 foot high retaining wall. We've pulled it away. There's still a small retaining wall here, but it's more like a 5 or 6 foot wall, just to avoid a lot of construction cost, and a lot of the challenge to developing is maintaining costs. So that's the only change that we've made. I don't know if we need to have a second meeting on this, or is this something that could be
It's
approved
just
now?
one, right?
But could you tell me how many parking places you've removed just for the record?
I think we've removed around 20.
Thank you.
And by removing the parking spaces that were over in this area, we've been able to eliminate the whole lane going around to it. So it's not just the parking spaces, it's a whole driving lane going around. We're still looking at stormwater, but we've decreased the impervious area quite a bit. The stormwater that we had on the site, I know the city engineer had a question about, and I believe we'll actually have less stormwater going off now than we would when we had the small detention area in the middle. So,
An entrance and exit on both sides? Or
yes,
is it one way?
one entrance will be in and out on King Street, and another on, I believe this is Gold Street on the
Okay.
side.
Jeff, can you remind me, how many units?
37.
37 units, 1 and 2 bedroom?
1, 2, and I think there are a couple 3-bedroom units.
I'm just trying to do the math for like how many people versus how many parking spaces.
The majority of them are single-bedroom.
What, 60 parking spaces in there?
Yeah, we've got like about 57 parking spaces. And we have a couple more that are right on King Street that are deeded to the abutter right here on King, that we had to retain parking spaces for them.
So are those parking spaces part of the 57?
No.
Okay, so the 57 are for this, right?
Yeah, I believe there are 57. If I could zoom in on this, there's a very elaborate accounting of that, but
Okay, so 37 apartments and 57 parking spaces. Yeah, how many of those are one, well, if there are 37 apartments, so if you're figuring, more than 1 car per apartment,
Yeah, we have 1.5 spaces per unit, per apartment.
What, you have 1.5 spaces per unit?
Yeah.
And did you have,
I was just going to say, the state increased the parking.
Yeah, I know. We had this discussion. I wasn't the one that was in favor of removing the parking spaces, so that's fine.
I'm sorry, it's 56.
It's 56.
56, plus the 2 that are deeded to the abutter.
Okay.
So how many are one bedroom? Does it say? I'm not reading.
I don't believe that's on, here.
No.
No. 37.
That's okay. I was just
I think
thinking
they're-
that they would be more likely to be car
One-car
households.
homes, yeah. Yeah. I think that we have, if I'm not mistaken, there are like 2 or 3 three-bedroom units, about 6 or 7 two-bedroom units, with the remainder being single bedroom.
I mean, there's also a massive parking lot across the street, so like if they needed overflow in the evening or, there's, that KV Cap owns as well, like.
Yes, and the KV Cap anticipates, there'll be extra spaces here, so during the day, when some of these homeowners or apartment people are working, KV Cap may utilize some of the spaces down toward King Street.
Yeah.
So it'll be a shared,
Yeah.
good symbiotic relationship, I hope.
Great. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Oh, you have to come up to the mic.
Quick question. Is there any room for expansion if there aren't enough parking spaces? If 56 is not going to be enough, do you have room that you could expand? Yes. Oh, okay, fine.
Yes, to answer his question, we could put additional spaces over here, right off of that aisle that's coming in. Those spaces could be added very easily.
Great. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the revisions to the site plan.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Great, thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. I'll drop off some plans
To Ann?
at Mrs. Beveridge's office, yes.
Okay, great. All right, next up is DNM Properties is requesting informal pre-application review for construction of 5 apartments at an existing single-family home, 76 Pleasant Street. Is that you
And
too,
it's me
Jeff?
again.
Okay,
So, yeah, this is an existing large home that's being divided inside to create 5 apartments, I believe it is. As part of that, we needed some additional parking outside. So the only changes being made to the site plan are the addition of these spaces here. To give you, I believe there'll be a two space per apartment parking space. And we're also adding an enclosed dumpster here that'll be screened. It's 20 feet away from the building, more than 20 feet from the building, and fully screened.
are they keeping that garage structure in the back?
They are, yes, but I think the owners are planning on doing some storage there, and they may allow some tenant storage in there, but there are other spaces that, potentially could park in front of that garage space, but as I understand it, will not be used for tenant parking. So the project is in 2 different zones, but all of the work is being done in the zone that abuts Pleasant
That
Street.
wooded area is a different zone?
Yeah, this is heavy line is the zone line
Yeah.
out back.
What's the back zone? Is that commercial or
No, it's res
B and C?
Res D, and the front is Res B.
The rear is residential B.
And the front is C?
Pleasant Street side is residential D.
Okay.
D, okay.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Okay, any questions from the board?
Jeff, I have a question. How close are the proposed parking spaces to the nearest property line? It would be like the rectory for the Sacred Heart property, I believe? Is that,
Yep, this area right in here. I believe they're more than 10 feet. The spaces are 19 feet deep. I'm sorry, 18 feet deep. And so that looks like it's more than 10 feet. I'm not sure if, I think the setback is a minimum of 5. Yeah.
is there existing vegetation there or a fence or anything?
There are 2 trees that are going to have to be cut down. But the area is pretty well vegetated. You know, if you look on Google Earth,
Yeah,
you know, looking from Pleasant Street, you got nothing. So the site plan is the only way to really see what's going on. We're trying to retain as many trees as possible. This one tree is sort of right on the edge of where the parking is going to be. Maybe that doesn't happen right there and we can retain the tree, but for the sake of safety, I'm saying it's going away.
These are going to be under 600 square feet each?
There are smaller units. I believe they're all 1 bedroom. We do have some structural plans, I think, in the application that I could show you if you're interested.
Sure.
Just need to find them.
It will be nice to see something at this house again. It's been empty for a while.
No, I'm sorry, I was mistaken. We don't have
Okay,
them.
that's okay. Any questions from members of the public? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, we don't have to vote? Okay.
Be happy if you did.
She's the boss.
Do you know when you might be coming back?
I believe we're good to go. If you don't have any comments this evening, we'll seek to get on the nearest or the
On the
soonest.
next one?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Has construction already started inside the?
I don't believe so,
Okay.
but I'm not 100% sure. They have to pull permits from planning board
Oh.
and everything like that. Or not planning board, but
From code?
code enforcement for
Yeah,
doing all the
okay.
interior work.
Do you know what the timeline is for?
I believe they're working on it as soon as we can, as soon as
As soon as
possible.
possible.
So I don't know, it probably won't be done this summer, but probably by early next year, I would imagine.
Great.
So, because you're required to notify abutters at least 14 days before the meeting by certified mail, then next agenda we could put you on is the 23rd of July. Does that work for you? And then we'll see if we have a quorum.
I believe so.
David's not available on the 23rd. Do the board members know if you're available on the 23rd?
23rd of August.
July.
July.
Sorry.
This is June.
Sorry. Yeah, I could be there.
Hillary? Okay. Tom, thank you.
I should be okay.
You're not sure? Okay. I have 2 yeses so far.
I said I could be there.
You said yes? Oh, thank you. 3.
Well, thanks, Jeff.
Okay,
Okay, do you want to put on the next hat?
sure.
Okay. So Popo is requesting the informal pre-application review for Popo's Food Truck Court at 121 Kennedy Memorial Drive.
Sure, and this is Popo right here.
Welcome.
So, this was a large lot, And let me zoom in a bit more to. There's a contract zone that allowed this to be developed like this. And the lot was recently purchased in its entirety. It includes the frontage of the lot here on Kennedy Memorial Drive. And this other frontage is on Merrifield. And is that Court Street? Or no? Carver Street on the end here. We're not developed, right now the only thing on the property is this large garage that's there, and they've been working to fix that up. So this project is a food truck court, and what it'll be is people with food trucks can come in and park for a certain amount of time. I'm not sure how that works out. They'll probably pay a fee for the parking space, and then be allowed to sell their food or whatever they have at that time. The trucks will be located around the perimeter of the site. They just wanted to use the property that's fronting on KMD. So they have trucks parked there. This will be like a parking area. The crosshatched area is also like a queuing area for people to stand in line as well. The entrance, they can come in either from the left or the right, coming in here on this lower entrance. These curb cuts are in place already, so there's no new curb cuts there. But the exit over here is a right turn only, and that's required in the contract zone, just because coming out of there and going left on KMD would be kind of a dangerous move. So what's imagined is people will get their food and then be able to use this area or the area in back of the trucks to have a picnic if they want. They can take their food in their cars and leave. Or I don't know if, they may be able to go back here and have a picnic. And there'll probably be some picnic tables or umbrellas or something there to accommodate that. We do have a water and sewer connection that'll be coming into this small building out front. And what that will be is if the trucks are there long-term, they'll need to replenish their water supply. So there'll be a hose there that they can fill their tanks, fill their water tanks, wash tanks. And also in the building, there will be a sink and probably a toilet. I have talked with the Waterville Sanitary District. He's very concerned about, wash water may contain some grease. And so what's not shown on this preliminary plan is they were requiring putting in a grease trap. So probably there will be a grease trap and then a place outside that they can dump into, dump the waste from the truck into the grease trap directly rather than, because you don't want toilet waste going through a grease trap. It's a separate plumbing thing. So we'll probably have another dumping site out here for that. This will be a sign that will be on the property as well.
I'm unfamiliar with this particular thing. So you're gonna have these trucks and they will have some sort of food waste that could have grease or just grease waste from fryers and things.
Yeah, not grease waste itself, but if they have any sort of dishes, cooking equipment that they're washing, that contains grease. Just like at home, you don't dump grease down the drain.
Right.
They would have to take their grease, the fry grease or whatever like that, away with them to dump somewhere else.
Okay.
But just the sanitary waste or the wash waste. If you're having utensils that you're washing, dishes of any sort or things like that, that water will have to go through a grease trap before it's discharged.
So how big is that building then?
I think this one is 10 by 10. It's small.
Oh, it's quite small.
Yeah.
Jeff, this was previously rezoned, contract zone commercial A, I believe in 2013.
Yes.
And it allowed it to be used as an eating establishment, is that
Right,
correct?
it is, that's one of the allowed uses. They do have a requirement that they close by 8 PM.
Okay.
So, yeah, it won't, it hopefully will not bother the neighbors that much. I mean, it's,
The site sort of falls outside the guidelines of an eating establishment, just because there isn't a certain number of number of seats or indoor seating that would dictate parking requirements. It doesn't have, I don't see a dumpster.
no,
or-
again, they're going to be encouraged to haul their own waste off.
Right.
They're, we potentially might be able to
Yeah.
put a dumpster in. That would be something that they could do inside this garage. So it would be completely
Yeah.
screened if they did decide to put one in.
Are they planning to use generators, or do they have electrical hookups?
There will be electrical hookups that will be available from the garage. There's an existing utility pole that's just off property here that's being moved over to the corner of this property, and then running a new electrical line back to the garage that's there.
But the individual trucks or trailers will not have AC hookups, they'll have generators, is that what they're?
I believe that if you're near that and can have extension cords, you could just use extension cords to get there. There's no permanent electrical stuff being
Permanently, okay.
put into the ground.
And they propose using propane to heat their
For
kitchens?
grease, yeah, I believe that's what they do. Because they're food trucks, I believe they're regulated as a motor vehicle.
Okay.
So there's kind of a gray space there with,
Does this fall, do the food trucks fall within the purview of regulations that apply to eating establishments, or are they outside of that as their own?
I believe, Ann may be able to answer that more.
Separate set of regulations for food trucks in the city licensing.
And you turned your mic off.
Oh, I turned it off. Okay, sorry.
When that separate regulation was created, was that envisioned for like head of falls, where they're only there for a few hours or for the day?
No, the
versus-
regulations, I sent them out today. Sorry I didn't send them out earlier, but yeah, I have them here somewhere.
Jeff,
They're two different sets.
how are these food trucks going to maneuver around there? Because they're very close together. Like, there's no way you could have a truck to back in, like, most of these food trucks we have around here are trailers that are attached to a
Either
truck.
trailers or vans.
Yeah.
And so I would think the placement will have to be, you'd have to do it before the customers arrive. You can't move them in
Well, they
and
would
out
have
when
to do it
customers-
like one by one, the way that looks, right? Like, they're gonna have to like line up along KMD and like individually come in.
If they backed into that area, it's going to be a harder gravel, so they could spin it around. Pull in, detach, and spin it around. The goal was to try to get in as many trucks as possible. In reality, if there are not 10 trucks that fit in there, maybe they go every other space. But it isn't a great maneuverability issue.
Is that something, though, that is set up every day, or is that something that we see? Yeah, if you want to come to the mic and answer that, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
And hi everyone, I'm Popo. And so this kind of food truck, we prefer to call it food truck park.
Right.
And it's a kind of, they rent our land every day and they stay there. They don't move every day.
Right.
Yeah, so they don't have to move. And we provide electricity, we provide water to fill in their tanks. And we have the dumpster, they can dump their the food waste and waste oils. So that's why we call it food truck park. Yeah, I did some research on the Google, and there's like a big food truck park in Maine. So we really want to hope we can have another one in Waterville.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different than what we, I think of food trucks that drive around from day to day and park in one place and then come to a different place. Like,
Yeah.
I think what our chair was thinking about was like, you know, at the beginning of the day, right?
Day,
Yeah.
But sometimes when like the big event, like Taste of Waterville, they just
Right.
move to the
They
big
would
event.
move.
Yes.
Yeah. Would you mind talking to,
Just quickly to clarify, I did not think that these were going to be food trucks that moved every day.
Oh,
I'm
no,
just
okay.
thinking
Yeah.
about lining up 10 food trucks on this fairly small lot
Okay.
is a very large feat. And like she said, there are, like, in the summer, we have fair season. Some food trucks are going to leave to go to the fairs.
Right.
I don't know how, like, one of the ones in the middle, if that's the only one that wants to leave to go to the fair, is going to be able to get out of there to go to the fair.
right.
You know what I mean? Or like,
Yeah.
just because every single one might not be coming and going at the same
good call.
time,
Yeah.
some of those could get boxed in. It's just a lot.
Yeah, for this, you can see the parking area. So we will put the wooden sticks and the ropes, like the ropes to protect, to block the parking area. So when, if somebody want to move, we'll just pull it out and then they can put their, they can park, they can tow their food truck and then go out.
Right, I understand, but like, okay. I, like, really get it, I do. I'm not trying to be a pain. I love the idea. But if we're talking like here and here, for example, right? You have a food truck here and a food truck here. If this one wants to get out and this one is staying, how is this truck going to get out? Like, how are you going to attach, like, if this is a trailer, how are you going to attach a truck to this to be able to pull it out?
They do have machines that are like, yeah, exactly.
Jeff, do you remember the distance between the food trucks?
I believe it's about 8 feet between them. And yeah, it's, Matt was saying.
They
you-
pivot, right?
They'll pivot if, you know, if it's a trailer. Yeah, they'd pull it out, pull the tongue out, and then the pickup truck or whatever the towing vehicle is could back underneath of it. Again, this could only be done when there's no customers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also I would like the owners to use the back area because that's all my land, so they can use the back area.
They can't.
What?
I don't
I
think
mean,
that
if
they
they
can,
wanna- if they
based off
wanna
of
move.
the ordinance, right? Like, they can't pull in and out of Merrifield. It says it in the contract zone.
I mean, if they want to move, I would like them to like a U-turn and then they can go out to KMD.
Okay.
Yeah, or I can limit the food trucks. It's
well,
much easier to
that-
make sure that like the bigger distance between the two food trucks. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't want to seem like I'm not a fan of this idea because I really love it. I think 10 trucks is a little bit aggressive for the size, but that we can discuss that in a bit.
Yeah.
But, Ann, the Merrifield part of the lot is not part of the contract zone, am I?
Yes, it is.
It
The
is?
entire property. I'll show you the map.
I mean,
Right, she was choosing not to use that. But there is a requirement to screen it. There's a requirement for landscaping in the contract. Hang on a minute.
While that's being looked at, I did have a question about employee parking. So employee parking for the food trucks. Would they be taking up some of those 17 spaces? So where would they park?
On my private property, on the back.
Okay, so they're going to park in the back?
Yeah, not in the front.
But you're not going to add any pavement to that, right?
How do they access that? Was the question, how do they park back there?
They would go in through Merrifield?
They can go in from the Merrifield, but the customer cannot go into that Merrifield.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because I'm not familiar with this, except I've been to the one in Portland, which is lovely, and there's also one by the Botanical Garden. So 2 questions. One, I looked it up. There's a whole diversity of kinds. Are you going to have like a definition for the kind of food truck that you want? Because like there are ones that are like larger trucks. There are some that are vans here. Some of them just look like little trailers, which are pretty petite. Do you have, like, are you going to say yes to some and no to others, or? just see what fits in there.
I think I will pick some different food. I don't want to like all the food truck the same food. So that's the only thing I will do. Like I will pick maybe 1 or 2 for drinks and others all kind of different food, like the Asian food, the American food, the Indian food, or tacos. Yeah, I don't have.
Very excited about the types of food. I cannot tell you, but actually what I'm asking about is
Yeah,
I love this idea. I do. Just the size and shape of the truck, because some of them are like vans and others are trailers. I was just wondering if you were going to, if it was going to be any kind. So if you have a van, that's okay. If you have a trailer, that's okay. Randy seems to have an opinion.
I have an idea.
Yeah.
I think the spaces that we've got shown on there are 10 by 20.
Yeah.
If there was a larger facility, a larger truck, maybe they have to rent 2 spaces,
Yeah. Okay.
and you could work it out that way.
Jeff, are those spaces, are they going to be gravel, concrete, grass? What are we?
Probably gravel.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't want to have any more impact than we really need.
I was doing some research into like the typical food truck, and a typical self-propelled food truck is about 35 feet long with like a 16-foot kitchen, and then a trailer would be about a 16-foot trailer. Is that about right? So I'm just wondering how the self-propelled food truck would fit on the pad.
It would be, a self-propelled truck might require 2 spaces because a lot of times they'll park and then they'll have their supply trailer parked next to them. So they would, might need 2 there. But again, some of the smaller, if somebody had a hot dog trailer, that could fit anywhere. And so it's going to take some kind of jostling around to get them into the right spot.
I think maybe we should revisit how many trucks are on the site. So I think 10 is like very optimistic. So because I'm concerned about the idea of having to jostle around in order, like it shouldn't be like fitting in a puzzle piece. Like it needs to be sort of convenient for people to get in and out, because the nature of food trucks, whether they're going to stay there for 10 days or 30 days or 60 days, is that they do come and go, right? So we need to make sure that there is maneuverability for trucks to be in and out. I also am really concerned that there's only 17 parking spaces when there's 10 food trucks, because like eating establishments, for example, have to have 1 for every seat. So I know that there was talk about a picnic area. I don't know where the picnic area is because it's not on the proposed site, but I think we would need to see that in the next, before we could give final review. And we'd need to know exactly like how many picnic spaces there are and how that impacts the parking spaces. And I also think that, eating establishments, I think, are required to have bathrooms for isn't that part of the state regulations for?
For an eating establishment, yes. I'm not sure if the same is true for food trucks.
But the contract zone
Right.
specifically says
Yeah, we
eating
can't have it
establishments,
both
not
ways.
food trucks. So right.
We can't have it both ways. Right. We can't say the contract zone says eating establishments, but then it's not an eating establishment, so we don't have to follow these other regulations, right?
So I guess that's the question. When we talk about an eating establishment, was that designed when people were thinking about food trucks? Right? This is like when you go to Europe and you go to a kiosk, or you go to Germany and you go to an Imbiss and you pick up a bratwurst. You're not planning on using a bathroom there. You know that you can't use a bathroom there. You're getting food. I actually would not be in favor of picnic tables because that encourages people to sit and stay. You're not trying to encourage people to sit and stay and loiter. You want people to buy food and you want them to leave. You want people to buy lots of food and you want them to leave. And the more food they buy, the better it is for business, but you want them to buy their food and you want them to take it with them and eat it elsewhere. Because you have very few parking spots. You don't want them to stay, because if the parking spots are taken up, no one can come in and nobody's going to buy food. So if it were somewhere else and there's lots of parking, that's a totally different story. If it's in an inner city, if it's in Portland or in Washington, D.C., near the Smithsonian, where people are walking on the mall, people walk by food trucks all the time and they can go and eat anywhere. But I too see this as a concern of there's not a lot of parking. You've got Kennedy Memorial Drive, all of those things I see as big concerns. I don't see it as an eating establishment. I see these as equivalent to a kiosk or that sells food. That's what a food truck is. It's like, again, it's like if you've gone anywhere in Europe and you go to a kiosk and buy a newspaper.
Yeah. Then does it fit within the contract zone?
Right.
And that's what we
And
have
that's
to,
the question.
and that's what we have to ask ourselves.
Right.
I don't believe that when we're talking about a zone that, had food establishment, that anybody had this idea or understanding what food trucks were. I love the idea of food trucks. I do. I want a vegan food truck. Just make it clear. Vegan food truck in Waterville.
Put that on the list here.
Please. But that's what we need to ask ourselves and understand it's totally different. And maybe that's what we need to ask you.
So the city solicitor says that eating establishments are allowed in this zone. And he specifically was asked, are food trucks eating establishments? And he said yes. So how you want to regulate them is a separate issue.
I do not see them as a restaurant.
So you
Yeah.
could conceivably have picnic tables in the rear and have parking in the rear too for people at the picnic tables, but you would have to screen Merrifield Avenue. The contract zone says that you are supposed to have landscaping along Merrifield Avenue. So it also doesn't say that you have to pave it, so you could conceivably have people parking on the grass.
But I did have a question, though, that I wanted to ask. So food trucks, because they do need energy, they often do make a lot of noise. So can you talk about the area around it? I know that it's limited in terms of time to 8 o'clock, but what are we talking about in terms of the noise that they generate? And who would it bother anyone?
Well, we do have an abutter immediately on to the left and to the right.
Okay.
So we are proposing to put a fence on the right-hand side, a stockade fence that would block that. And that's primarily because headlight sweep might come across their property. So a stockade fence would block that. The home on the left, we could do something on that side as well to put a fence in. As far as noise,
I'm thinking about like equivalent to a fair. Do you know what I'm thinking about? Like the fairs that you go to in the summer and the noise that you hear from them. I think that's the equivalent of that noise, but it would be that kind of noise every day up until 8 o'clock at night, right?
And all year?
So that's why we provide electric. Then they don't have to use the generator.
The generators.
So they won't be using generators?
Yes, okay.
I would
Yeah,
not
I
want them
would
to
be
be
in,
able to
The
use
food truck is so
generators.
loud.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
yeah. I was gonna say, I would be in favor of saying generators should not be allowed.
If you're not using generators and you're using very long extension cords, are there issues with running electrical extension cords over the grass to the farthest proposed trailer location? It seems like you're running extremely long cords.
Yeah, we already talked with the electrician. Yeah, we already talked with them, and they said they will dig the ground and they will bury the pipe and put the lines inside, and then they will have this. It's not very tall. It's just it's like a wood stick, and to connect, then they will have outlet.
Self-hookups.
Okay, that would be good.
Okay.
Good, yeah.
But everything, we
and I
should do it after the meeting.
yeah, and I can add that onto the plan. That
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
probably like a shared power receptacle at each, not at each, but perhaps between each two
Yeah.
spaces. Getting back to maneuverability, I think if we had a couple fewer sites, that would open up a lot of space in
I think
back.
so too.
Yeah.
So if we maybe went with 8 instead of 10, I think that would make the maneuvering in there a whole lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, like the 3 on this side have a lot of room around them, right? And then the other ones are so close together. So
So we can,
I just think, looking at that, Jeff, and how that would all work is important before you come back.
yes.
I would also recommend maybe even just a 2-yard dumpster or something for customers to throw their trash, or,
Can we put the dumpster in the garage?
okay. That's the only place?
I mean, if,
Well, I'm not
I
sure
don't
about
know.
that because of the fire requirement that the dumpster be 20 feet away from.
yeah,
So I don't, we ought to ask the fire department about that.
yeah.
I'll email them. Verify.
But there would be something for customers to put trash into, right?
They will have
Yeah,
trash
the small
barrels.
check.
Yeah, okay.
See, one of the challenges here, I thankfully am not a lawyer, no offense, but this is kind of outside of our food truck ordinance too, you know? Like our food truck ordinance is not written to accommodate a food truck park. And some of the other parks that you've referenced throughout the state have that specifically in their ordinance to kind of cover, like, how are we going to deal with waste? How are we going to deal with noise or generators or wastewater or parking or bathrooms? Like, all of that's addressed within their ordinance, and it's not in ours because we don't have an ordinance that addresses something like this, right? So it's like, doesn't fit into the food establishment ordinance perfectly, and it doesn't fit into the food truck ordinance perfectly. My concern is like picking and choosing the parts of both of those ordinances that we like
That's your,
without, you know.
your prerogative, given that we don't have an ordinance at this time. You have the requirements in both the site plan review ordinance and the zoning ordinance, so you can use all of those performance standards.
Yeah.
And I think this may be something that evolves over time. You know, if problems come up, Popo is really good at solving problems. And so if things come up that don't work, you know, they may be able to rework something like that. You know, one of the other things is, I had thought about is a water supply. If they're having a
Yeah.
little pylon for power, you know, we could run water around to that. But again, that's an extra startup cost that they're trying to avoid at this point. Maybe a couple of years down the road, they'll, you know, if this is indeed successful, they'll be able to afford some additional infrastructure like that.
So safe serve requirements require a certain amount of water supply on site in the trailer for washing utensils and dishes and things. It would be extremely onerous to have to haul buckets from that spigot and the,
Well, we can do it with hoses because I'm not sure how they do it down the waterfront. There must be enough onboard water that they can deal with a shift.
Well, they don't stay
Right. but
for
they-
extended time,
So
right?
they can fill up at the beginning of the
Yeah.
shift and then empty and discharge into the grease trap at the end.
And Ann, would all of these food trucks have to be licensed through our,
By the city council.
okay,
What about,
yeah.
I'm sorry, not to question that, but what about itinerant ones that just come in for events?
There's like a day charge or something like that, right? Like in the food truck ordinance?
I just
There's
handed-
different like license levels or something, like one's like for just a one-day event, one's for, so my other question, like, do you plan on having like music or anything like that there? No music, okay, no music. Yeah,
more
so,
than 30.
yeah. Yeah, because there is a specific part, of like for the, when they do the Taste of Waterville, they have like, it's a special event license, so if you had, you know,
Okay, that, I don't need to know.
Yeah.
Just as long as there's a means to address that.
yeah,
That-
they wouldn't have to get like a 3-month license or,
Right.
I think that's the most.
That's
that-
the max.
Yeah, the max.
Yeah. And I don't believe this will be open in the winter. Will it?
I'm not sure actually right now.
Okay, I didn't make that statement then.
So I would just say, since we're still just thinking out loud, I would just reiterate, KMD, as we all know, is super, super busy. So, you know, concerns about traffic, concerns about people backing up and getting stuck on there, increasing revenue. I don't think you want to encourage people to linger. You want people to get in and out. So as you're thinking ahead, I don't think you want to encourage people to sit and eat. I think you want them to buy food and you want them to take it home, like takeout.
Take out, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if they like it, they're going to want to come back, and then you've got people parking in those spots just long enough to get their food, and then they're getting out as quickly. It's really nice to have a bathroom, just like anybody who's stopping and needs to go, and they've got a little kid and they just have to go. But it's an emergency. It's not an inviting place where you hang out and eat your food. You take
Yeah, I
it home
see
and
the
go somewhere.
bathroom more important for the employees.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what I was
that
gonna
of
say.
course, absolutely. But for anyone else, it's really go. The generator thing I was thinking about. I mean, I like that. We'd prefer that they not use generators, but I love it to be reserved for emergencies. If
Right.
there's power outages, that they could always have that as a backup.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that's not the plan initially. But thanks.
And just to keep harping on parking, because I guess that's what I'm doing today. So if the people that are just leaving their food trucks there, right, presumably they then have to drive there to park. So you're thinking they can park in the back and the 17 parking spaces would be for customers only?
Yes.
But still, if you have 10 food trucks, it's rare that I visit a food truck somewhere and I'm the only person visiting that food truck, right? So you barely have, 1.5 parking spaces per food truck, roughly.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I just think if we're gonna have 10 food trucks, I think we should look at maybe more than 17 parking spaces.
The problem is there's not, we don't really have room to put anything more on that front half of the lot. If we could use the back half of the lot, we could put parking back there, and
So why can't you use the back half of the lot?
they didn't want to do that.
Okay. But we're gonna use the back half of the lot for the employee?
For employee parking, but not for customers.
Yeah.
I guess
I just don't want to bother the neighbors because there's a lot of neighbors complain about in the past, about
Yeah.
on the Merrifield, on the Carvers Avenue. So that's why we choose to only use the front, the Camden set. Yeah, but I definitely can open the back to employers because we can stay here. We won't bother the neighbors. We are not just in and out several times per day.
Right, they'll just be
Yeah.
there once.
Yeah, just to stay there.
And sorry, how will they get there? Again, how did we say that the employees would get to the back parking lot?
I believe there's a curb cut existing on Carver, there's one on Carver, I believe there's one on Merrifield.
They can't enter from Merrifield, right?
Merrifield,
the-
but that's part of the contract.
That's part of the contract zone.
Can you not use it for employee parking?
No,
You
it's,
can't use the driveway at all on Merrifield. Hang on a minute.
and for Carver Street, it says driveway serving residential uses only are allowed onto Carver Street.
Okay. So there's one truck that goes away.
Okay.
So that they
I
can go
mean,
through,
I'll have to go through.
right?
One of the trucks can be moved, probably the third one from the end, so they can pull right in there.
Yeah.
So that truck would have to go away, and employees would access that point.
And I mean, I would respectfully disagree with Hillary. If I were to go to a food truck park, I think the beauty of that is I can go with a bunch of friends and meet there and we can all get something different. And I would still want to be able to sit down and eat. I'm not thinking of it as a McDonald's drive-through. I'm thinking of it as a place where I'm going to go and get food and sit down and eat with my friends and enjoy the outside and when it's nice weather and things like that. So I presume other people would do that as well. But I think all of those things should be on the final plans, if there is going to be a picnic area, if there is going to be employee parking, all of that, if we could get that clarified on the plans,
Yeah, I
a
think we'll
dumpster.
probably do away with the picnic area, because that is a good point. You want people to get in and out. It's unfortunate that they can't hang around and go get ice cream afterwards, because one of these guys has got to do ice cream. So,
Point of clarification, I do want to hang out with, I want to meet you there and hang out with you there. It's, my concern is the location. If it were somewhere else, I would be in favor of it. It is specifically this location I don't think is really conducive to that.
The people across the street at Gouda Boys, they probably come and go, right? They don't hang out there. There's no place for them to dine in there, right?
I have no idea, I've never been.
What's up?
They have inside dining.
Oh, they do, okay.
I can definitely see that parking lot filling up very quickly at lunchtime.
Because unfortunately, it's not like a walkable thing, right? So it's not, there's not a lot of places where people are gonna like walk in. It's not downtown where somebody might be
Yeah.
like walking
But
and
it would
walk
be
down, but
walkable from Merrifield and that neighborhood in behind there.
for the people that live there.
Inland Hospital.
Yeah, and right,
I
the
can
employees at
imagine
Inland,
Hospital walking.
and that's just it, I could
Have
see.
you ever walked down KMD?
KMD has
the
no
people-
sidewalk.
Yeah, but people do walk on KMD all
Oh,
the
yeah,
time.
yeah, no, that sidewalk's actually pretty decent, they just redid it.
On the one side.
Yeah,
On one
yeah,
side.
on the one side, and there's a crosswalk at Inland, and that is a concern, right? If the
With a-
parking
with a
lot
light,
fills up,
pedestrian light.
and then people start parking at places across the street and then trying to cross KMD there, that could be dangerous.
Or trying to park along Merrifield?
Right, right. But,
The city may have to put up some no parking signs on Merrifield
Yeah.
adjacent to the property too.
right. I will say, I kind of agree with Sam. I'm more in favor of there being some picnic tables or, an area to sit and eat. This is actually walkable for me from my house. And I'm not sure I'd want to walk all the way down there and
It's a
grab
long
food and
walk.
then walk all the way home to
Yeah.
eat it, right? Or stand there and eat it. So, but that's my 2 cents on it. I would also be a little bit concerned about the sign and the building there right along KMD blocking the view of people trying to exit.
It
Seeing-
is set back from the property line, so you should be able to pull out far enough beyond
Yeah.
that to look down KMD,
Yep,
because it is a right turn only exit.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd just like to add, if you are including a picnic area or seating, if you're planning to do shade structures, awnings, canopies, or a tent or anything like that, I'd just say, please draw that, because I like to include that in whatever, site plan review. Because the abutters, it'll be visible. If there's a tent, like you see in some places downtown, it's going to be very visible to the abutters.
If we could avoid tents,
Yeah.
I would be happy.
Yeah.
Like you could use umbrellas or,
Yeah,
Okay.
but with 17 spaces, we're really limited to how many people we can accommodate.
unless you did less food trucks and more parking.
Yeah, it's difficult to do parking on this because we wanted to use the existing curb cuts. So at one time I showed parking where the 3 trucks are down on the right-hand side. Then you don't have space, you don't gain any spaces that way because you just have a wide open area to turn around.
Right.
So this is a pretty effective way to do parking, but it's just, without extending onto the back lot, you're stuck. We went through, 4 or 5 iterations.
Yeah, I mean, parking in the back lot would be a lot different than food trucks in the back lot, so with employee parking already going to be back there, you may want to consider allowing customers to park back there too.
I think they're
But-
thinking about another use for the back lot. I don't know.
Sure, so if there is going to be another use for the back lot, then the employee parking goes away, which is why we need to see that on the site plan.
Yeah.
So,
We'll see how that works.
yeah.
Well, this has been good feedback this evening.
It's hard because it's not like spelled out in the ordinance, so it's like I've been trying to sit around and mull, like, what are things that might pop up that we haven't thought of,
And this is a new thing.
Yeah, it's,
This actually is the first food truck park that I've ever done.
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, so in the water thing, you're thinking about having a toilet for employees? Is that what we said? Yeah, because, I mean, if they're there all day, if people are there all day, like 11 to 8 or whatever, they're not going to be able to just like scoot down to Hannaford or something. So, oh, another question. If they, I'm not a food truck person, so I'm not like, I don't know how all of this works. If somebody's leaving their food truck there like overnight like that, do they need refrigeration? Like, do you keep your food truck plugged in for refrigeration?
The first thing is we will put the fridge in the garage.
In the garage,
Yes.
okay.
If they have something need to freeze or something, they can definitely use that one.
Okay, so that it would be like a shared refrigeration in the garage?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. I just thought of that, I'm like.
But normally they won't put a lot of thing in the food truck.
Normally they just
They will
bring
put the
stuff
daily.
with them every day? Okay,
The daily things, because nobody will run the food truck or generator overnight.
overnight, yeah, it would be expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we-
So, how would they like go about some of those deliveries? Like, how does all of that work, like getting food delivered?
I would assume that they would bring their food with them. The employees would bring the food, or the employees or owners would bring the food with them when they show up
Okay.
at the beginning of the shift. Some of that may be in small trailers, or they may have, the back of a pickup or something.
Okay. So, and then one last question, and then I'll shut up. If you do have, I know you mentioned like drinks, an alcohol truck, but we're talking about.
No alcohol.
No alcohol, okay. Yeah, because I'm like, if we're
soda.
having an alcohol truck,
Yeah.
but we're talking about people not sitting
Yeah, I
and
know.
drinking,
There's
that.
need another
Code system.
special certificate, so we won't let the alcohol
Okay,
truck.
great.
And just for clarification, we're not proposing any like large delivery trucks delivering food? None?
No.
Okay. And some restaurants, especially if they have a fryer, they have a external grease tank. It's like a small dumpster where they dump the fry oil, and you're not going to have that in any way?
They have to transport that off
Okay.
themselves. I'm not sure how, but they have to.
It's like not your problem, right?
Her lease for
Yeah.
the space will specify no dumping of.
Yeah, I will just write it on my contract. I will have the contract with the owners and
Yep.
let them know that this is not allowed. Yeah, to dump the oil just into the toilet. You cannot do that.
Yeah. And Popo, how long do you want like your leases for each truck to be?
It depends on the different owners, but some of them, they may, like, most of the food truck owner, they will know the events, the big events, or like 30 days per month.
Yeah.
So the lease should be like can be 25 days, and 5 days they can go to the event, like that. Yeah,
Okay.
but when I will talk with the different owners because they have the different ideas.
Yeah, have you thought about doing like, I mean, I know you and your husband have a food truck that I assume would mostly stay here, but like having other people like almost like a pop-up schedule, and it's like, for the next 2 weeks, we're gonna have these trucks and they're gonna lease, and then cycling through and doing like another couple of trucks. I think it's like Biddeford or something like that I saw something like that. And I think keeping them cycling keeps it really fun and interesting for people and
That's a good
keeps
idea.
bringing them back, right?
Yeah.
So you could do something like that too,
Yeah.
for the next 2 weeks, this is going to be the schedule here. And then the next 2 weeks, we're going to have this schedule. Like you can try to do something like that, which would allow you even more variety.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
She could hire you as the event planner.
Please don't. I'm really tired. Any other questions? Any questions from the public? Okay. So we'll see. Are they already on the agenda for the next meeting?
We don't have a quorum yet.
Okay.
We're still looking for April's commitment?
Oh, I already said yes.
She said yes. Oh, yeah.
All right, could we run through the list again? David is not available, Matt is a possible, Hillary said yes, April said yes, Tom and Sam. So we've got.
So we have to see if Cassie is.
4. So we need Cassie to have a quorum.
Okay.
So
So-
would you be ready on the 23rd if we do have a quorum?
July 23rd.
Well, Jeff is the one that has.
What about the
to
2nd?
Yeah, probably, yes.
Jeff.
Working next week now, Jeff.
Yeah. What 4th of July?
Forget about that vacation.
Yeah.
I know, and we just gave you like a laundry list, so sorry.
Yeah.
All right. What would be the meeting after the 23rd, Ann? August, like,
13?
The 13th of August.
okay. So either the 23rd or the 13th?
The other project I have on the 23rd is pretty simple. It's just the letters I need to send out. So that's
Yeah.
easy.
And reviewers' letters.
Right.
And the
Actually, I
reviewers.
sent reviewers letters out for this one. I just need to incorporate some of those changes.
Have you talked to Fire about this yet?
I sent them an email.
Okay, but we haven't heard back yet.
Mr. Frost yet.
I'm just wondering if they have any concerns about like the amount of propane tanks and, you know, how that lays out, or if there's any like fire suppression. I don't know if our food truck ordinance off the top of my head requires them to have like a certain size fire extinguisher or anything like that.
No, that's not in there.
Okay. It might be something like you might have to put in like your lease or something, Popo, like that they would
all
have
the
to have
food trucks should have their own the system.
a sprinkler system.
Yeah, and they should pass the system and then get the permit from the city.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the first step.
Where do they
food
get the
trucks.
water for their sprinkler system?
It may be a chemical system.
Yeah, I think
okay.
it's chemical.
Okay.
Just don't eat the food after.
Yeah, you would not be able to.
After you use that, you need to close and then clean it. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Do you have any other questions or comments for us? Okay, great. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Next meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm done.
Okay, have a good night, Jeff. Okay, last is the city council's requesting the planning board recommendations concerning revisions to the zoning ordinance to allow for apartments in all commercial zones and to eliminate parking requirements for apartments downtown. This is in accordance to section 7.1 of the zoning ordinance.
Real quick.
Yes.
Are we having a meeting on July 9th?
I don't think so. I don't think anybody's going to be ready on July 9th.
Thank goodness.
Okay. Because I was considering tabling this until then.
You can table it till the 23rd. if you want.
I would not do that because
No.
I might not be here. I probably won't be here on the 23rd, so I'm not going to table it to the 23rd.
It's okay. We
'Cause
can,
that would
let's
be
have
weird.
a little discussion.
So,
But can I ask a point of order? Is it a discussion or a hearing?
It was properly advertised.
So it's a-
You
yeah.
can vote if you want.
So it's a hearing.
Okay,
Okay.
but we don't have to vote on anything, is what she said. All right. Any thoughts? I'm going to try to pull up the ordinance because my iPad died.
I did email you at the end of the day. If I could just run through this. If I could just run through this really quickly. We had discussed at the last meeting, when it was a discussion, of the board members looking around town and at the commercial C zone and considering areas zoned commercial C, such as Airport Road, where you don't think housing would be appropriate. And I didn't include that in here. So this is just a first draft. Yeah, so there are two, for the audience, there are two different sections. One is allowing apartments in all commercial zones, and because the industrial zone, general industrial zone, allows all uses in the commercial D zone, unless you change that, you would also be allowing apartments in the general industrial zone. So I propose changing the description of what the general industrial zone is, unless you all decide you don't want to continue to have that language in the general industrial zone, which says all uses permitted in the commercial D zone. So the council didn't send to you a request for you to consider whether or not you want apartments in the general industrial zone. I just added that because of the language that already is in the zone. So the language that I added is underlined. The language that I'm proposing to delete is stricken. And the language that I especially wanted you to see highlighted in yellow. One thing I mentioned to David at the beginning of the meeting is that we talked about not requiring parking for any apartments downtown that are within 1,000 feet of the concourse or the head of falls. And when I drafted this, I left out the word apartment, so it says any property within that area. So that would include commercial uses, and I can tell you right now, the Code Enforcement Office does not require parking near the head of falls or near the concourse for commercial uses. So this language that I inadvertently wrote this way actually matches what is going on right now anyway. Are you following me?
Well, yeah, except for in the past, I thought that we had told people that they couldn't have apartments if they didn't have off-street parking downtown.
Right, I'm talking about, I left out the word apartment. I didn't mean to leave out the word apartment.
I see.
But once I saw that I had done that, when I proofread that, I realized that this matches what the existing situation is. The Code Enforcement Office doesn't require, a new store going in doesn't have to provide more
Right.
parking if it's near the head of falls or the concourse, but a new apartment does. So this language would say that neither one has to provide parking. Everyone uses the concourse or the head of falls.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'll speak to adding housing to the commercial zone, well, B, C, and D. I'm deeply uncomfortable doing that.
I'm sorry?
I'm deeply uncomfortable doing that, adding housing, residential housing to commercial B, C, and D. There are reasons why we keep residential areas out of general industrial zones and the other commercial zones. And in fact, under commercial A, we talk about some exceptions that are allowed, but it describes things that should be excluded under commercial A because ostensibly there's going to be a potential for residential housing. And it says that there should be no nuisance created by emission of noise, vibration, electronic radiation, fumes, dust, or odor. And I think that is instructive. We want to keep people safe where they live. So by adding the ability to have housing, this resolution, then, you know, it doesn't do anything to make these zones safe and healthy to live in. It just allows it. And to me, that's an environmental justice issue. We shouldn't be putting our most vulnerable population in unhealthy areas. So that's my opinion on that.
Any other thoughts? So I'm looking specifically at the commercial C zone and like along College Ave, for example, like it already is mostly residential. So it's like we have the CC, whatever we call it, one
CC1.
zone.
Yes.
And then on the other side of the street, closest to the train station actually is residential C already. And then like next to the train station, and then along College Ave is commercial C. So it's like you can have housing closest to the train station, but not along College Ave. So, I mean, I understand the concern, but there's so much existing housing already there that then we rezone every single time someone wants to put in an apartment. It just doesn't seem consistent. I think that's the area that I was most concerned with.
Yeah, and when I look at commercial B, I mean, that's KMD Plaza, Shaw's Plaza,
Yeah.
Elm Plaza, right? That's what that is. I mean, I personally wouldn't want to live there, but at the same time, I don't think it would be harmful for people to live there. I mean, it would.
Right, but that's not, we're kind of flipping the cart and the horse here. So we're just because there are things that are not consistent and the way this particular beast grew means that we have some inconsistencies, that doesn't mean that we need to create a situation where people are going to be building new houses or building new residences where it puts people in harm's way. So the houses that are by the intermodal station, by the trains, that neighborhood predated that facility. So, I mean, that kind of got grandfathered in. Is that a healthy situation to be by all those dieseling things? Not particularly. I don't think that, you know, creating a big apartment building there is advisable. I don't think exposing more people to that is advisable. So no, I don't think that that's a reasonable thing to say, well, we have some other areas that are okay that happen to be commercial C where people are having residences. Okay, fine, but commercial C generally has a lot of different manifestations and we shouldn't be encouraging new residences to be built in that zone.
I'm just going to echo what April said. I'm in agreement. I think it has to be incumbent on us to consider it maybe twofold. And I appreciate what you said, David. You wouldn't want to live there. And there's a reason you wouldn't want to live there. And I think when we're thinking about planning, we need to consider what we plan and do we want to plan spaces for people to reside that we ourselves would never, ever, ever consider living ourselves? And then we need to think about, are those spaces healthy? Right? Not, you know, and so there's a difference between what was grandfathered in and how things developed. And there's a difference between, well, it's already there, we might as well just do it for everybody.
So I'll clarify my statement.
Yeah.
I also wouldn't want to live downtown.
Oh,
I wouldn't want to live in an apartment in a
Fair.
mixed-use zone.
Fair.
So-
But when we're talking next to trains, I mean.
Again, I was
Okay.
talking about commercial B.
Okay, fair.
So KMD Plaza, Shaw's Plaza, Elm
Yeah.
Plaza.
Right. I think we have a lot of people who come before us asking us to rezone because they have already built apartments and they're already there. We know that. And we end up having to rezone because they've already done it and we know it and we have done it. That doesn't mean because it's happened that we just need to do a blanket, well, we're just going to allow everybody. I mean, that's the whole point of this board.
A lot of those buildings existed before
Right.
they were changed.
And
To
there are
commercial C.
Yep, and then yep,
So-
right. And I appreciate that. And then there are some people who build apartments and say, "Oh, look at what's here." We have a choice, and again, you also have a choice. I'm just saying, I'm in agreement with April.
I also think like commercial B along Water Street, there's a lot of commercial B along Water Street, which is surrounded completely by either resource protection or residential C. I don't understand why we would prohibit people from putting housing along Water Street. I mean,
Well, then we can talk about rezoning, though. Like, we don't, because of all the different things that could go into commercial C, we are going to be putting people in harm's way. Just because we can find anecdotes throughout the city where it would make sense to have residences there, doesn't mean that we should do a blanket change of what can go in a commercial B, C, or D, or industrial zone.
well, that's what we're here to recommend to the council.
Well, I'm not going to recommend it to the council personally.
No, I mean,
So-
that's what we're here to recommend to the council, like, well, these areas could be rezoned to allow housing, or these areas can't. Like, that's the whole nature of what they sent to us. right?
We're talking about redefining entire zones.
Oh, no, that's what Ann wrote in a
Well, that's
draft
what
ordinance.
what was in the resolution. The
Yeah.
ordinance tracks the resolution that the council sent to you. But I think the idea was, please look at places where more housing could be allowed. I don't think the council necessarily meant you have to do it in this way.
Well, if we have other tools, I'm open to those. But this particular approach, I'm not in favor of.
So we could start over again and just talk about where you would like to allow housing where it's not allowed now, and then we could talk about what zone should be,
Yeah.
where it should be rezoned. But then we would have to go through the regular rezoning process and notify abutters and property owners and ask them if they want their property rezoned. Or we could create a new zone that says,
Are there any members of the public that have thoughts?
Hi, my name is Don Plord. My wife and I own a couple of properties downtown. We own one specifically. We have an apartment above Holy Cannoli on Main Street, and I think in order to keep a vibrant downtown, I think the more people that you can get living down there, I think will be great. I'm excited about the Head of Falls project that Todd Alexander has proposed. I think that's great. I think it'd be good to have people here. The only question I had, and I had discussed, I think, is parking. The only thing I wanted to mention, if you talk about parking, I think it would be, for the people that are living downtown, it would be helpful if you had maybe a designated parking area for residents only. Maybe you sell them a permit once a year or something. They have to renew a permit, but they have to prove that they live downtown. And then that way, when it snows out, that they don't have to try to find a place to go park their car that isn't on, that is, because if you're going to get more people downtown, I think, to me, I just think it would be important to do that, but just my thought.
Can you talk a little bit, so would you be in favor of removing the requirement or not? You just,
As far as removing the requirement for parking, I think that's fine. I do. I think that's fine, as long as you don't require them to have that. I think the more that we can, I think I would like to see something maybe available, some designated park, the city to have maybe a certain section in the concourse. You have, all-day parking at certain areas. Maybe there's a section of the concourse that, when it's a snowstorm, they have to park there. And then they have to be out of there for 24 hours, the next day when they clean it up. Just my thoughts on try to get people to stay downtown. So I have a gentleman that's executive here in town. He's living upstairs, and he struggles in the wintertime trying to find a place to put his car because when it snows out. Luckily, we didn't have a lot of snow this winter, but he had and I thought maybe it would be good if they had like certain, I don't know if other cities have done this, but there's permitted parking. Maybe you sell them a permit for $200 a year or so, whatever it is, to designate an area that is only so many, Ann?
Yeah, so what you want to do is talk with the city manager about that, and
I
then
did.
he would propose it, to the council.
Okay, I have mentioned it to him before.
Right,
but-
so we're just working with the ordinance, and
Yeah.
so it's the council's parking
Sure.
lot, not the planning board's
Okay.
parking lot.
All right.
I mean, it's a great point. We used to have like the stars or whatever, and that was
Yeah.
like the overnight parking spots and
Yeah.
like all sort of sense of order in the concourse and the rules that used to exist
Yeah.
doesn't seem to exist anymore. And it does make it hard if you need overnight
Yeah,
parking.
well, I think, and I know that, the gentleman's, that bought the Tardif Jewelers building, he's got a couple apartments that he's been permitted that he's putting upstairs too. And they're going to be high-end, nicer apartments that
Yeah.
he's going to have. And I know that was a question that he had too, that was concerned about parking, so just something to keep in mind.
I think that's a great idea.
Just a thought.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Tom?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't pretend to have all of the answers, but I will start with this. I don't think we should look at parking in a vacuum. We shouldn't have cars close to houses because it's where people are living, it's not safe, it's not healthy for them. Someone else says, I wouldn't live downtown. I guess I would start with, what is it that we want to do as a city? What do we want to do as a city? I've lived here all of my life. I've developed with my brothers and my children all over the city. I have 7 storefronts downtown, as others do. And I want what's best for the city. It was mentioned earlier by a couple of you folks here, I think Madam Chairwoman and Ms. Koch, about this isn't Washington, D.C., where people are walking around, and it's not downtown, as the chairperson said, where you're walking around. Well, that's the problem with Waterville. We're not walking around. We're doing things, and we're going to create things so people are not going to want to walk around. In Waterville, my opinion, I've been here all of my life, I'm 76, there's not a supply issue. There is not a supply issue. There's a management issue, and that's with you folks. When you manage, I hope you manage not for you, but for folks like us that have invested into this city, and for folks who do want to live downtown. I am fortunate, as well as another person here in this room. I've got 40 or 50 private parking spaces for all of my tenants. When I say I want what's best for the city, I have a great relationship with Jin Wan, the restaurant across the street. They use my parking lot. The bakery across the street, the young lady that's there that has cooking classes, she uses my parking lot. Loyal Biscuit, they use my parking lot. Headquarters have apartments above where they are. They use my parking lot. Modern Underground, they use my parking lot. The Lebanese Bakery, my heritage, my legacy. I opened that up with the intent of me running it, but I found someone, fortunately, that's going to run it and continue Lebanese heritage here in this city. They use the parking lot. And whatever it is that you folks are going to end up doing at some point in time, it's going to put a lot of pressure on maybe the Dupreys, the Nails. We've got parking spaces that are at a premium. And believe me, there are people who use my lot and probably use your lot, and they shouldn't be there. And I try and manage it as best I can. When you put $65,000 or $70,000 into paving it, you'd like to be able to make sure that whoever uses it has receiving some benefit from the person who owns the property. That's me. So I know there are rules, and I know there were regulations. Believe me, I was a judge for the past 7 years, and I had to make some tough decisions. All I'm asking is, let's not look at it in a vacuum. What can we do to create traffic downtown? There is a demand. The demand is I want to park where I can go into OPA. You know how many parking spaces OPA has? 2. You know how many parking spaces Amici has? None. None. We want to encourage them, yes, to use the concourse. There's 175 spaces there. Header Falls, there's got to be at least 120. And I befriended some folks at Colby. I'd like to go to some of the games, the hockey games. I befriended some of the hockey players, and I've given them a parking permit to use my parking lot. They're young ladies, they're freshmen, they're sophomores, and they are frightened, believe me, when they come from Header Falls up through Temple with some of the traffic that they see. So we've got to address all of those things. But this is a great city. It can even be greater. And the way we get there is making good decisions, folks, and I suspect that you will. But that's my 2 cents.
May I ask a question? Mr. Nail, I appreciate your comments, but what is it that you're recommending?
What am I recommending?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we're really considering things in a vacuum. I think we're just having a discussion. What is it that you would like to see done?
Again, no disrespect when I said vacuum.
All right.
But we were talking about just downtown. We were talking about parking here, parking there.
Yeah.
I would get together with my city planner and others. There's one gentleman in town that's dealing with the downtown. I've got property down here as well as Mr. I never met the fella. I never met the fella.
Well, see, we of course have to have this discussion here. It's not that we can you know what I'm saying? Like, we have to have this discussion here. This is what we're doing.
Well, I'm saying, but there is somebody else that's involved with this city and the downtown. And I mean, I'd like to know who he is. I'd like to have him get out and talk with people. But what do I suggest?
Yeah.
I suggest this. It's very simple. What is it that we want to do? We want to have a vibrant city. We want to have a vibrant downtown. We want to have traffic. We want to have people walking. We've got to change the culture. People have got to say, yeah, I will park in the concourse, and I will walk over to Dave's Jeweler, or I will walk over to one of the restaurants downtown. It's simple, folks. If you take a look at Hannaford, when you see this huge parking lot, it's a one-stop shopping. They just stop and they go in, they get out and they go.
Yeah.
Same thing with Home Depot. We don't want that downtown. We don't want to scare everybody away. Let them park, but we have to manage it somehow. And we have to change the culture. People have got to understand, and I'm one of them. When I come down, I want to go to one of the stores. If I see that there's no parking, I may drive around again and see if I can find a spot. I'm as guilty as everybody else. But we have to sort of change that mindset. But what would I do? I would put some great minds together and say, what is it that we want to do as a city? Come up with that concept. We want a vibrant downtown. How do we get people walking from mainly Brews to Front and Main? How do we get them to move? You go in the middle of the day, go at 11 o'clock or 2 o'clock, you'll see cars all over Main Street parking. You won't see anyone walking.
So I'm just going to jump in and say there is a comprehensive plan review commission. That's more in their wheelhouse. And there was the downtown revisioning that happened as well. But what you're talking about is really more comprehensive plan than what we're talking about, which is what the city council told us.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Johnson. When you say comprehensive planning, you don't think what you do here has anything to do with the biggest plan? If you limit downtown parking to certain things or people, you don't think that's going to affect the entire comprehensive plan of the city? It sure is, my friend.
Sure, and we take direction from the comprehensive plan, which was last updated in 2014?
Well, I think the
and is due,
preamble in
and
the
is
comprehensive plan
due
is what
to
is best for the city. What can we do for the city
Yes,
of Waterville?
that's exactly what we're discussing.
I don't think that Mr. Johnson means any disrespect here. We're just looking at the agenda item with
Yeah.
what we were tasked with tonight.
Right.
And so, with respect to parking, it was to discuss whether we should, consider a revision to the zoning ordinance and eliminate parking requirements for apartments downtown, which is, I know what you were sort of getting at. And that's what I was asking you, like with regard to this particular agenda item, if you had recommendations for that. I'm not in disagreement with you at all on anything that you just said. That's just not our purview. And I think what he was saying is there's like that just falls out of our purview. It just does.
I'm doing my part. There are downtown apartments that have no place to park. They use my lot.
Yeah. So, but do you have a recommendation in terms of apartments? Like, would you be in favor of us eliminating that requirement?
That the people that are living on the second and third floors on Main Street, they can park on Main Street?
Well, right now, we have a requirement that if you have an apartment, that you have to have parking. And so what we are being tasked with tonight is to consider removing that requirement, that you could have apartments and say, no, you aren't required to provide parking for your tenants.
I'm all for that.
You are for that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so the nature of this zoning change is just to be able to increase development on the upper floors downtown, because right now, if you put in a new restaurant, you don't have to have off-street parking as long as it's within a certain radius of the concourse and all of that. But if you wanted to put in a new apartment, which Mr. Plord found out at one point, they were requiring off-street parking.
Yeah,
And some of those buildings, like, there's no way for them to have off-street parking, right? Like, some of our buildings are fortunate enough to have that included in their plan, but not everybody does have access to that, so.
All right, thank you.
We don't want to prohibit people from making an apartment.
Well, in
Yeah.
Jorgensen's, we're moving upstairs. We're putting 3 or 4
Yeah.
up there, and so, I mean, there is some benefit to us in removing that restriction.
It would be.
But then
Right.
again, we have 40 spaces out back, so.
Would it be a deterrent for tenants, do you think, at all?
What's that?
Do you think tenants would be deterred from wanting to rent with you if they didn't have parking?
Well, I don't think my tenants would be deterred. I've got 40 to 45 spaces out back. I'm just
Okay.
talking about that. I mean, I don't want to dampen anyone's interest in doing second floor, third floors throughout Main Street, because I know that there is some interest in that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, here in Waterville, we have a housing shortage. We talk about it all the time, but we do have a relatively limited land mass to build on. So ideas like this open up the idea, like the parking, opening up the zoning. We really don't have anywhere else available to build. So, for those reasons, I am in favor of it.
I'm wondering, Anne, if it's possible to, like, in the, can we write in the, commercial C zone, no apartments except for along Water Street or and College Ave or something like that? Like,
Oh,
can we
certainly.
make those additions to the contract zone? So instead of it being like a blanket, you can, this is now an allowed use. We're saying this is an allowed use in these parts of
Yes,
the
absolutely.
commercial
You
C
can
zone.
send back to the council any language you want. You don't have to respond specifically
Yeah.
to what the council sent to you.
I'm wondering if people would be more amenable to something like that.
And so is it easier to name the areas we'd like to see it or name the exemptions of where we don't want to see it?
Yeah.
However you want to do it. You could also separate the downtown parking and send that on to the council and then spend more time thinking about the commercial zones, housing in the commercial zones.
Those feel very different to me, so I would be in favor of splitting them. I'm also in favor of positively identifying the parcels that it's acceptable for residences to be on in the commercial zones. It just seems like there's going to be fewer shenanigans that way, trying to get inexpensive housing in areas where it's questionable.
Are there any motions? Okay, I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we recommend to council to eliminate the downtown parking requirement for apartments. And I think I was comfortable with the language that you put together, Anne, which
Do
was,
we need to make a motion first to split them? Or
I'm sorry?
I don't think we do.
do we need it to make a motion to split them apart, the parking and the zoning?
I think that's what she's doing.
That's- okay, that's what this is, okay.
But could I just clarify that, Samantha?
Yeah.
On page 2, the language, if a property in the commercial zone downtown is within 1,000 feet of an existing public parking lot, no parking is required. It doesn't specifically say apartment. So you're comfortable with any use downtown within 1,000 feet, whether it's commercial or apartments, that is not required to provide.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that how it is now? Like a restaurant or a business on the first floor wouldn't need to provide off.
No, the ordinance says if you have a restaurant, you need 1 parking space for every 3 seats or some such thing.
But
You
like
put it at-
Silver Street Tavern doesn't have.
But the code enforcement, practically speaking, the code enforcement doesn't require that. There's language in here that, in the parking section that says the code
Okay, yeah,
enforcement
that's
office can allow.
Can waive it.
It to be waived. Yeah, because it said can
And that was
waive the
within
parking
300 feet.
requirements if the parcel is within a building
Right, so
located.
rather than leave that language about waiving,
Yeah, we'll just allow.
yep.
And expand.
Yep,
You're okay with that?
I am comfortable with
And
that.
it's only commercial A. So,
The commercial A.
Downtown.
within
If
the
there's
only
downtown,
commercial A
And the
downtown.
downtown definition is
Yeah.
from the sign section of the
So
zone.
not like something that would go into Food City?
What's Food City?
Isn't it Food City?
Oh, the food truck park?
No,
no, I
Next
was-
to Goodwill, like a big, sorry, like
I
a
was-
big.
Oh, save a lot.
Save a lot.
the reason I mentioned
Food
it's
City, I think,
only
is Tucson, sorry.
commercial A is because within this footprint, there are some residential D and residential C. And so I just wanted to point out that it is only commercial A. There's also some commercial C that would be within that 1,000-foot radius. So,
And that's what
so
the
this is only
draft
commercial
language
A.
says.
So,
Okay, so that,
which is, I think, good. So,
But like, the Saves a Lot building would qualify within the 1,000 feet of the downtown
Right,
zone. They have the concourse parking lot.
right. I think David was just saying that within the downtown, as we're defining it
Yeah.
here, there is some area that's not zone commercial A. We're talking
No,
about,
I understand. I
the
guess I'm
downtown.
confused by what April was mentioning.
I'm not sure what April
Yeah.
was saying.
so, okay, so maybe I'm misunderstanding. So with the 1,000 feet, I'm looking where it says, so we're trying to say any commercial or residential entity does not have to provide parking.
no.
And I'm not, please inform me, I don't know. The concourse doesn't belong to any particular residence?
Right, it's a city.
It's a city.
The city owns that.
Okay. I was, so, yeah. So somebody that moves into the Save a Lot will not have to guarantee parking, is what we're saying.
That's right,
Yeah, they never.
because
They-
the concourse
Yes,
is
I'm
Before.
just
right in
checking.
front of.
I'm just checking.
Yeah.
Because it would be awesome if we could get, Trader Joe's in there and then have them on the hook for the parking garage. But that's neither here nor there. That's not happening. So anyway, I understand now. Thank you, everybody.
What a dreamer.
Okay, so I'll repeat my motion. So I motion that we send a recommendation to the city council to revise the language of Article 4, subsection 2, subsection B, Part 2, to say if a property in the commercial A zone downtown is within 1,000 feet of an existing public parking lot, no parking is required.
Right, so this language that you have on page 2 is acceptable.
Yep.
So I'll just, in my notes, I will say page 2. Okay.
Yeah, as written.
Second.
Is that David?
Yep.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Okay, thank you. So then, on the rest of it, allowing apartments and commercial uses, can we postpone that to a date certain?
Yeah, so why don't we postpone that to July 23rd if we have a meeting? I
Okay.
guess, does that work?
Yes.
Okay. And if everybody could actually look at the zoning map and identify areas that, there are areas on the zoning map, like along Water Street, for example, is a great example, that like were housing at one time, right? And then we've changed them now to be these commercially type things. And I wouldn't want to prohibit people from returning some of those into housing. And we've had situations where somebody lives in one of those zones and needed to have part of their property rezoned. So like, I think that's sort of the nature of what the council had wanted. So if you could identify some of those areas that we could allow and add to the ordinance, like I said, like commercial, C, how apartments are prohibited except for along Water Street or along College Ave, or would be helpful, I think, for the next meeting. And Dave, if you're not going to be here and you want to submit some of those ideas in writing, that's fine too, if you want to participate that way. To Ann. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll motion to adjourn.
Excellent. Thank you all.